go. Well, welcome to a couple of Lindas, because we're all just a bunch of Lindas out here just trying to get through life. So I'm Desiree, by the way, and with me today I've got RG and
Hello.
Rachel. Yay, welcome. This is a show about just a couple of friends getting together and conversation. Because to me, the best aha moments come from just good, solid conversation, and it feels like people have lost the art of conversation. So we're trying to bring that back. And also, being in the South, we also have this perspective that we want to maybe debunk some of the myths of what people think the South or Southern culture is. So, yeah, we'll get started. So, I guess I kind of wanted to start with maybe what's making you happy these days, or how was your week? Tell us about your week, Rachel.
You mean tell you about my week?
Yeah, your week. Unless you know about someone else's week.
Let's see. Well, right before I came here, I made boxed mac and cheese for my small human. Definitely the highlight of my week this week.
Wow.
Yeah. I went camping this weekend.
Okay.
Went out to Pickett State Park. Right before the article about Jamestown came out on the BBC. So that was real fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that article? Like, a friend of mine posted it who lives there, and his concern was that it sounded like to him it was just a bunch of statistics that they just threw out, and that it could have been any town USA. I've never been to Jamestown, so I can't really speak on what the town square is like and all of that stuff, and if it was really accurate. But like, what was your take on that article?
I felt like it was actually pretty accurate. Our friends that we camped with played a game on the way up there where they counted the number of American flags and the number of Confederate flags, and they said the Confederate flags won by a nose.
Oh.
Yeah, a bunch of people with mannequins in their yards, kind of freaky.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Why?
I don't know.
Why
One was
man-
actually in like bent over in a car on blocks, like he was working on it, but it was a mannequin in an actual mechanic's full body suit.
Interesting.
That was really fun.
Mannequins are the worst.
Yeah.
Was it like a scarecrow?
To frighten you away from abandoned
Perhaps.
vehicles.
Is that a thing? Like, this sounds like that's a thing.
Never seen that before. So Jamestown's got that going for it. But no, it was pretty accurate. The article, back to that. And it did. I hate to say, I had some friends in academic circles who were at other universities who shared the article and were talking about it. And I did actually post on one of the shares that it's stuff like that reminds me to be compassionate when I'm fucking mad as hell. Because I get a lot of students that come from places like that. Yeah, but it was interesting to be out there and go camping in the woods with people who have very expensive RVs and yet hang all sorts of things off of them and move into their. One woman brought her own pink flamingos that she set up like it was her yard. That was cool to see. Yeah.
So it's not really camping as it is glamping?
It was glamping. They were definitely glamping,
Yeah.
but glamping like Florida style.
Florida style, showing your Florida. Oh, and for clarification, that Jamestown article, it was a story in the BBC that was talking about poverty in rural America and the reason why some of those folks may be big Trump supporters. That kind of got circulated around our area because it's just next door.
Yeah, it was really fun that came neck and neck with the White County "Let's sterilize our prisoners" article.
Those two big stories this week. I was so interested in reading one, the BBC article. I thought it was very good. I thought it characterized the area very, very accurately. For me, who studies politics, it was very interesting that it was the focus of their piece was what are sort of the links here between things like poverty, which is a experience that many people in rural areas, especially in the South, have. Many of us have experienced poverty, but how then that is reflected in their political in an individual's political beliefs. Do they still feel connected to the candidate, Donald Trump in this case, and how that some sort of maybe is there some sort of disconnect between their level of poverty and and sort of what the federal government could be doing or is not doing, or just, it was a very interesting article, I thought. But that other one, and the one from White County, that one stood out to me probably the most, because a judge in White County back in May had issued an order essentially allowing prisoners to be sterilized in exchange for reducing their sentence in the county jail by 30 days. And they had, I want to say, a wait list of like 38 men. And then already a number of women had gotten implants, birth control implants. And they were waiting, 38 men waiting on vasectomies to get out of jail 30 days sooner. It was a huge uproar. The ACLU lodged a complaint. I think the judge finally just over the last day or two rescinded the order. And it was so very surprising to the judge. He had no idea. Like, we've never had, I don't know, people forgotten about the term eugenics or something. Like, this is just something that, this happened in the past, especially to African Americans. It was just one of those, sort of horrific things that was Hitler-esque. And here it is in White County, just cropping up, less than 30 miles away. It was just, that was astonishing to me. I was just startled to read that.
There just seems to be so much that's popping up that is very, like, just Nazi-esque, where there's just this totalitarian control of the people. And, of course, there's always that fear of, like, is Handmaid's going to actually happen? Is that going to be a thing? So RG, tell us a little bit about your week.
So my week, I am currently prepping to move, relocate temporarily for a new position.
Yeah.
So it's been filled with prepping for class and prepping for moving. So I'm doing a couple of introductory courses in American politics and getting ready for that. So that's been the majority of my summer has been prepping for these things. So that's taken up a lot of my time.
Yeah, moves are stressful on top of your charting off in this career.
I hate moving. It's one of the worst experiences in the world, is to have to move, because you have to pack up all of your things, and then you just, sometimes I think you can come to two different realizations. One, you can realize that, I have accumulated way too much stuff, and then you feel really terrible about yourself for having bought so many things, and I'm so materialistic, and oh gosh. And then the other, you pack up your stuff, and then you think, gosh, this is all me. This is it. I can fit it in a U-Haul. That's all mine. Like, I have nothing. What's wrong with me? Yeah. So you can go two different ways with it. And I have not come to the end of mine yet. I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up on this, but we're ended up, the way that the move is going to go is that I'm not going to take everything. We're going to have, two different locations. We'll be in two different locations for the next few months. And, so everything's not coming all at the same time. So it may be a little easier on me.
Yeah. Like with my move, like obviously I'm still here living out of boxes. I moved 2-3 months ago, and I'm like, you see outside the boxes are finally making their way outside of the apartment instead of just being in here clogging up since I have people over. But RG, tell us a little bit about your research. It's so interesting what you do, because no one else is really doing this study, right?
Well, there's a large community of LGBT scholars out there, people who are studying LGBT politics, and it's an rapidly expanding field, as I think we've seen maybe evidence this week with the backlash surrounding the president's tweet about changing military policy to disallow transgender service members. There's a large response I've seen on social media, the people that I follow, who have pointed to the various lines of research that sort of rebut many of the arguments that would be made in favor of this change. And so there is a very broad community of scholars who are conducting LGBT political research. But I think I come to the arena with a unique perspective, because I have been born and raised in the South in a very Pentecostal religious tradition that then sort of moved into activism within the LGBT community, and then coming to academia through that. I've got a perspective that I don't think a lot of people are pursuing. So one of my recent inquiries has been in that vein as to what happens when LGBT identity, a person's LGBT identity, conflicts with their religious beliefs, and is there some effect on politics? And so that's been very interesting for me to pursue. I hope to maybe come back on a later episode and go into a little more detail as to what my paper that I'm currently working on actually says.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give it away just yet.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you for details or so far what you've gathered from maybe
Yes.
some surveys.
So it's very interesting that people think about LGBT people as often as, number one, white males who are affluent and urbanites, right?
Yep.
Non-religious, atheistic.
Yeah, guilty.
And we don't consider the intersectionality of the subject, and that leaves a lot of people without a voice, and can further lead to marginalization. And so, because we have these sort of stereotypes of LGBT people, we don't think of them often as religious, when in fact what I've noticed in my research has been that just in taking, say, a sample, a public opinion poll that have been conducted that are representative of the population, that the majority of LGBT people would report religiosity. They would say that they are religious in some way, that they hold to some faith. Which that in and of itself is contrary to our stereotypes of what LGBT people, how LGBT people's lives are structured, right? That they don't have any sort of religious beliefs, and that's just not the case. So this is a huge factor in terms of our community, and I think that plays a major role in how our politics are shaped. And in fact, what I'm finding is that it does, that people who experience, and especially when you experience conflict between who you are as a person and what your religion is telling you is a moral or right thing to do, when that happens, that it can have negative consequences on your political participation. It can have consequences on your attitudes about various aspects of politics, like things like equality, right? Defining equality, what that means. That has your experience with religion has a bearing on how you discern those things. So a very interesting line of research, if I do say so myself. But I think it's a topic that we don't talk about because we go into it with these preconceived notions.
Yes.
And when we actually empirically examine the evidence, it just blows our mind, right? It blows our conceptions out of the water. So.
Well, that's the whole point of having conversations with one another, because we, as much as I hate when someone is like, "Oh, I don't see color," or or "I'm colorblind." I'm like, "Girl, shut up."
We're in a post-racial
Yeah.
world.
We're
that was a Supreme Court
post-racial.
decision, right?
I'm like,
2013,
okay.
Shelby County. Don't get me started.
So I'm like, oh, okay, so you're walking around and everything is in black and white, like it's 50s television. I think not. Like, you obviously see differences in people. So that does come into your play. As much as you don't want it to, you kind of have an idea of what a person is based on just that quick assessment when you first see them. Now, the trick is, of course, not to let it cloud any of that. Like, have a conversation with the person. Don't let this, whatever bias or whatever preconceived notion you have of them, don't let that block that relationship, conversation. Like, who knows what you might find out. So that's kind of been a journey that I've been on the last few years, of just actually getting outside of the box and talking to people, having a conversation, not being afraid to, and hoping that the other person will be open and honest and willing as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, psychologists, they call it cognitive shortcutting. And we do it for our own survival. And it's one of the first things I teach my undergraduate students. Like week 2, we talk about cognitive shortcuts. We talk about implicit bias and how we already have these. I mean, it used to happen because our brains would go ahead and jump to the end of the story without having to do any of the cognitive legwork for each new situation. And so now we have to undo that and actually do the cognitive legwork and not just jump to the end. Because that's what our brains want to do. They want to jump to the end. They want to go, oh, well, I know, that this person meets X, Y, and Z of these, qualities, that's who they are. Snap judgment, move forward. And it's one of those things where we have to undo that, like you said, in order to have conversations. I want your paper in my class, please, Archie.
Oh, definitely.
I would like to assign it to my students.
Okay.
I want to read it.
It's on an R&R at the moment, so
I'm very
we're hoping
excited.
to maybe something will happen. It's not due back until November, so
Yeah. I mean, as a married bisexual mother that's been passing as straight my entire life because I was raised by two Methodist pastors who BT dubs are super divorced. Yeah, I mean, like, I would be fascinated to read that. I went over to the academic side in order to understand why it was that I grew up the way that I did. I studied religion from an academic outsider perspective, purely like that pure academics, right? Trying to be as objective as possible, which we can't ever do perfectly, because I wanted to know why it was that I had grown up in the environment that I grew up in.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about bi-visibility or bi-invisibility.
Invisibility, right.
Because a friend of mine who, she and I dated for a while, and she is and has been in a committed relationship with a guy for a number of years now. But when she's in community in activist spaces, of course, she's just read as straight because of who her partner is. So that's the reason behind bi-invisibility is that just because you're not with a same-sex partner at that time, then like you're straight. There's it's clear cut. It's one or the other, and that's not the case. But also, you don't want to have to feel the need to like wave a flag every single place you go.
Mine would just say sup.
So
Bisexual.
But it's so very disheartening when you hear, and I've seen this, in the headlines in terms of on social media, major newspapers asking, or major publications asking, is there such a thing as bisexuality? And it's like, come on, get over it. It's, it's, and to hear among the gay community, I don't know how many times I've heard friends even, who's maybe someone remarks about bisexuality. Well, that's just a short stop on the road to gay town, and it's like, oh,
okay.
That's what gets said about men and about women. It's, well, you're a straight woman that had an experience in college, or something, or you're a slutty straight woman, it's always couched that way, which is really kind of fascinating. But I mean, I do have a little bit of guilt because I have shirked a role in the activist community because I did not want to sort of feel it from both sides. And so I felt a lot of guilt about that because I've not been very vocal. I've not been much of an activist. It's one of those things where I keep up with the stories. I almost feel whenever there are stories about the trans community, I feel even more connected because I feel like that must be also a place where you really don't belong. And one of my best friends in the world who actually introduced my husband and I, they are queer and genderqueer. And I feel like they and I have never had a conversation about our sexualities, but I feel like I have more in common with them than other people in the community. I know that's, fucked up in its own way.
No,
but,
not at all.
yeah.
You are describing very interestingly. So my work, my dissertation focused on. I took a survey of about 1,215 LGBT identified adults in the U.S. And one interesting. So this is not exactly what I was measuring, but one question that I did ask, one measure that I did come up with was in the literature we call it linked fate. So how much you feel your fate is tied to that of other group members. And one thing that was interesting that I found is that people who identified as bisexual made up a larger proportion of the sample than I thought they would, number one. Number two, that people who said they were bisexual, self-identified as bisexual, didn't feel as connected to the LG community. That and there's a number of reasons that you can think of, and I think you're describing them, why that's the case. Because lesbian and gay people have made bi people feel like that they don't belong, that because they can pass, perhaps that they are then immune to the sexual discrimination that comes to lesbian and gay people. But at the same, and then at the same time, bi people are experiencing that sexual discrimination from the lesbian and gay community.
Yeah.
And I completely, I see that. That is, I'm sad to say, not an uncommon experience, not an uncommon feeling.
And also within the LG community, like specifically with the lesbian community, femme-identified folks who then also deal with the same alleged invisibility, not alleged, like actual invisibility, by their other lesbians or queer identifying folks, because they are seen as, quote, like passing or whatever as a straight girl.
Right.
And so there's that struggle and that dynamic, like depending, and also it's cultural and maybe based on cities. Like I remember some years ago that the study or maybe the feeling was that if you were in San Francisco or like a city like San Francisco, you need to be queer as fuck, you know, like you need to be just out
Completely
here, like
outrageous, That's what we call outrageous.
If you're not doing that, then what are you doing? Why are you here? You're not queer. You're like, your queer identity is questioned.
Your queer light.
Your queer light is like out. Like, yeah. Why? Why do we feel that need to?
That's very
police
interesting.
each other.
Yes, that our. So I coming out it's a huge process that I think it's important. That we've learned so many lessons through coming out stories. Politically, I'm always approaching this politically, of course, but I can at times see criticisms of having to come out because we often, again, we have these notions about the queer community that big city, so you're sort of anonymous and you can be your true self, and that's great, but that doesn't happen for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So in areas like ours, honey, I've been walking down the road in blue pants and people yelling at me queer and fag and all this just because my pants are blue,
right,
and they're not blue jeans. Okay. And it's May. I'm dressed up like, I've got my seersucker on and I'm going to brunch, darling. So, of course
I'm wearing blue pants.
I stand out, and that just reinforces the idea. It's not safe for everybody to always be out and always be outrageous. And so, I while I completely agree that it's important to be out for people who are in a position where they are safe, they can be safe, and then to look down on, or to criticize people who can't be out because they're in, someplace like where we are. I think that takes it that you can be your authentic self, and that's great. It's not safe for everybody to do so. Right. And I think we have to recognize that more.
So here's a counter to that, like, because I've heard your stories of the discrimination that you have faced, and so as a white, gay, queer male living in the South, I feel like you get probably the brunt of a lot of the discrimination, whereas the assumption is myself being a queer woman of color, like one would expect for me to just like have all doors closed in my face. But for some reason, at least, here in Cookville, I've gotten a pass. And so why is that?
Because you're like a damn unicorn.
What do you mean?
I think it's one of those things where because you are an anomaly in a town like this that is so, let's just say it's so white.
So white.
So white.
You do,
so white.
yeah, exactly. God, you do get, wouldn't even call it a pass. I think people take pride in saying, well, I have a friend that is a gay black woman, or, I know a black
it's a mark
lesbian.
Of liberal.
Yeah.
Sort of, I'm okay with this.
I'm cool because
I'm not,
look at my gay black friend over here.
My gay black friend, yeah. In a small, there's a small progressive community here, right?
Yes.
I mean, I haven't been here that long. It's been about 2 years.
I don't feel it's that small.
Well,
I mean, comparatively to the rest of the, I feel like we have a big crew that runs deep, but compared to the rest of it. Like when we step outside of that said bubble,
Yeah.
it's a little scary,
We're
a little
the
dangerous.
1/4 of the population in the area that, you know, is...
And we all know each other.
Yes, and yes, that is,
Exactly.
you know...
Forgive me, I fucking moved here from Philadelphia, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little insular. Like the progressive community, they all know each other. And there's a little bit of pride, I think, that people feel about knowing someone that is not the norm in Cookeville, right? So I also, though, think it's really interesting, whereas you think you come across as, oh, well, that's who I am. Well, obviously, people look at you and they're like, okay, well, she's black by looking at you. I don't think your identity as lesbian always reads immediately.
How? Like, how? Like,
you know?
honey, like,
Honestly,
I feel like
it's
I
the blue
look
pants.
obvious. The blue pants.
Apparently not.
Like,
You know,
they just chop it up to me being black, like not necessarily being
can't-
queer. Like,
exactly.
oh, she's different.
Exactly.
Black. Like, it's not
I'm
a
telling
queer
you, I'm completely serious. When
guess.
you came to the party when my mother was visiting, she was like, well, Desiree is lovely. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, there's something a little off about her. And I was like, you mean because she's black and queer? And Mom was like, well, I didn't know she was a lesbian. But so I don't think it always reads.
But she thought I was off, and so the off was probably the queerness.
You know, it's the sexual energy you just radiate every time you walk into a room, I think. So.
I don't know about that. But so like the experience I've had, for example, I'm always cognizant of that. I'm in white male cis male Republican territory, and so I'm just always kind of on guard.
Are you always policing yourself?
No, I don't police myself.
Okay.
It's more if it's almost like
You're just aware?
I can become aware depending on the situation. I'm usually just kind of like walking around, no big deal. But for example, I've been in Kroger or I've been out to lunch with a friend, and we're just like, we're having lunch, hanging out, we're on campus, and we're sitting at a tabletop, and this guy is walking towards us, and I just kind of, freeze up. There's no indication that he's coming to us, but I just kind of feel like, oh, because he's a, white cis male, probably mid 50s. And so the assumption is that this guy has got a Confederate. This is horrible on my part, is that the assumption is that, oh my God, this guy is like a total tea partier, and he's coming over here and he's going to have something to say.
He's got a Confederate flag tattooed on his
Right,
dick.
he's got a I don't know that I went that far, but yeah. He's, so anyways, he comes up and he's like, hey, are you Desiree? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, he knows my name.
He knows my name. And he's like, oh my God, I just wanted to, he wasn't like, oh my God, but he was like,
fanboy.
He's like, oh my God. No, he's like, my wife, I'm here having lunch with my wife, and we recognize you from your show on the local PBS station. And we just want to say, like, how wonderful of a job you do. So, thank you for doing that show. And I was like, oh my God, I am the biggest asshole for just assuming that this guy's going to come over here and be hateful. And every time that's happened, like at Kroger, I've been standing in the bread area, and a guy just kind of came close to me and was just like,
by the way.
The bakery.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't the bakery part. It's just like where the like loaves of breads are.
You
I know
dirty
what a bakery
You
is.
dirty girl. You're just in the regular aisle of bread. You're not even buying your bread in the bakery.
You don't buy artisanal bread? Oh.
I don't eat bread anymore. Like I even hesitated to even said bread. I was like, someone's gonna call me out on
By the
eating
fact
bread.
that I'm no longer buying my Lewis's half loaves.
But the same thing happened. This guy comes up and he gets close, and I just kind of like, freeze up, like, oh God, please don't let this be a hate crime. Did the same thing. Oh my God, I love your show. Da 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 da. And I'm like, God, I am trash for like just assuming the worst of people.
Again, those cognitive shortcuts, they start in order to protect you.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to turn that off when you are in a stressful situation where you feel like, how are you going to run in the Kroger bread aisle? Where are you
Right.
how are you going to
go?
Yeah, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Well, so on one hand, I understand the desire to not, the desire to challenge your own stereotypes of people, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've been proven wrong. Why do I still hold on to those assumptions? But also, I think, in my personal experience, I am always aware of where I am and who I'm with, because I have been on the sort of bad end of these interactions. My experience is not abnormal, because I think many people have experienced. Well, I know many people have experienced hate crimes that have been far worse than my own. That I've experienced. I ran into oncoming traffic once outside of the Kroger that you're talking about.
Good God.
Driving down the street. The guy, I had my windows down, playing NPR with all of my queer bumper stickers, and the guy comes up beside me and drives his car into my lane. It's a 4-lane road, and I had to swerve into oncoming traffic to avoid hitting this guy. And of course, it reported to the police. Never heard back. There was never any. I took pictures of the guy and his car and his license plate, and gave all that information to the police. Never heard back. Never was a prosecution in the case. So those things happen. And so I understand then as well being on guard and being wary if you feel like you're in a place where you could be the victim of a crime, and that can be a hard place to negotiate. Is to the desire to want to question your assumptions, right? But at the same time, wondering, am I safe? Will this end poorly for me? And so there's a balance there, and maybe I'm not describing it that great, but I do have those those feelings as well. Am I coming off too queer at this point?
Yeah.
But I will say that I've gone to the country western bars around here. I've gone to the hole in the walls, out in the recesses of the county that have a queer person has probably never darkened the door. And I have not experienced those things there, which there was, probably plenty of opportunity. So I don't know. I have been, I think my whiteness, my cisgenderness, I think those things in many ways have helped to reduce that. But what I have noticed, whenever I do challenge gender norms, when I do challenge norms of sexuality, whenever I go out in my brunch outfit, my blue pants, and my bow ties.
I want to see those pants now.
Whenever you go out and you challenge those things, that is whenever I seem to get the pushback, because masculinity is so fragile and whiteness is so
Masculinity is so
God,
fragile.
it's so fucking fragile.
So fragile.
I'm sorry.
Everybody's always up in arms about their own.
Am I not supposed to curse?
No, you can curse. This
Okay.
is
didn't-
this
I
is an
didn't know.
NPR, babe.
I didn't know.
We're not that fancy. This is a podcast. It's good. I mean, don't go on a tirade or anything.
I'll do my best.
Like racial
Racial.
epithets or anything.
Yeah,
Please do
start-
not
I'll-
do that.
I'll do my best.
I mean, I
Thank
would
you.
edit that out.
You would edit that
obviously.
out. I appreciate
Like, I would
that.
just
I
leave that
appreciate
in there.
So but my
because
fucks are okay.
your your fucks are okay.
All the fucks I want to give.
All yes.
Yeah.
All you'd
Well,
like
the
to
question
give.
then becomes, can you edit out the sound of pouring wine?
Yeah, pouring wine, or the fact that I knocked the microphone stand to keep dropping my wine glass like a fucking Sasquatch.
I would never edit out the sound of wine pouring because
I do keep burping the other direction. I just
I
want to make sure
appreciate
that.
I appreciate that.
That's why
Thank
I turn
you.
my head when you guys are talking. It's 'cause I'm
I
burping.
wondered,
Yeah.
but I appreciate that about you. So what has been your experience as a bisexual who was always read as hetero?
Well, in some ways I've been. There is the convenience to being read as hetero because nobody challenges you about your sexuality. I have been incredibly lucky that I have a spouse that is actually supportive of my sexuality and doesn't see it as a threat.
Yeah.
Speaking of fragile male masculinity.
No, like your husband is everything.
Yeah.
Like to have a support, like as
Yeah.
a cis white male who is so words elude me, to be so supportive
Why?
and progressive and just so chill about everything.
Yeah, that's been pretty great. I was in some ways my own journey with my own sexuality was is kind of typical in that I grew up being told that it was wrong to ever have feelings for people of the same sex. Where I got lucky was that I went away to school at a young age and went to a really progressive school. And we were allowed to teach classes occasionally where you could, you were a peer teacher.
Yeah.
And I took a class with a lesbian woman and a gay man who we took an American sexuality course. It was 6 of us. They were peer teachers. And I read things for the first time. I read Kinsey for the first time. I got exposed to the Klein scale for the first time.
Where on the Kinsey scale are you?
I am a 2.6 according to the Klein, which makes me pretty right on the middle, like so far as my bisexuality. I'm
not familiar with the Klein scale.
So Kinsey actually never developed a test for his scale. Kinsey, his scale was purely based on the interviews that he gave, and then he would sort of award the participants a place on the scale. I'm sorry, you already know all of this.
No, continue, please.
No,
please.
I asked because I'm the ignorant one.
So there have been some other researchers who have now come forward and developed tests that you can take in order to figure out where your place is. So they basically are going off of Kinsey's scale, the 1 to 6, but you can actually place yourself, like you can answer these questions and it will help you place yourself. And so the main one right now is the Klein. It's the Klein scale, which is purely based on Kinsey's, but you can actually take the test. So according to
Is
Klein,
it 1 to 6 too?
1 to 6 as well. Yeah. So a 3 would be solidly right down the middle, super bisexual, and I am a 2.6. So I'm slightly more attracted to men than I am to women.
Yeah. Okay.
So that class, that peer taught class, was the first time I was ever exposed to the fact that sexuality is way more fluid and undefined. But in reality, that challenges a lot of our narratives because there's something about having an identity and being able to self-identify and then being able to find people who you feel like are like you. And so in some ways the fluidity is comforting, and in other ways it can be a stress about, well, where do I fit then? So I've, as someone that identifies as bisexual, I've taken a little more comfort in the fluidity. Because I really don't feel as though there is a community that I fit into. And again, I've been incredibly fortunate to be married to, a spouse that's like, hey, cool, whatever. When I have been, that sounds so good, RG. I like it.
Don't mind me.
Don't mind me. I'm just pouring a glass of wine.
So far as my, don't mind me, just
Someone's
wine.
gonna keep me going.
So far as my level of outness, I feel as though I've been a little fluid with that as well. There are people in my life who, my sexuality, it's of course, it's obvious. Like we talk about it. It's not a big thing. I recently, though, finally told my mother that I was
How
bisexual.
did that go?
Well, like, fuck, right?
Give us a setup. How exactly did it?
When
Tell
I
us
was
everything.
So when I was pregnant with my child, I met my mother for a weekend for my birthday. She wanted to see me over my birthday, and we were living in Philly at the time. We met halfway, stayed in a hotel room together in Richmond. And again, my mother's a Methodist pastor. She falls solidly on the side where she does not want the Methodist Church to offer unions. Yeah. And that has been something she's actually struggled with. To her credit, she is not cut and dried for her. And I don't even think it's a question of hate for her. It's just that she came of age when the Bible said what it said, and period, end of story. So we had a conversation that weekend in which it came to shouting over the fact that I said, I don't understand how you can be so limiting. Like, you're fine with divorce, which is also, again, I studied.
Prohibited.
Yeah, which is prohibited. It's prohibited in Matthew. It's right there in black and white.
Well, and having a female pastor, right? Like that's even still, this is still a struggle for the Catholic Church. Right?
Women should be silent in church, right? That's straight up. What is that, Corinthians?
Apostle Paul.
So which we can talk about Paul and authorship another time when everybody wants to be bored to damn death. But I would love to because it's so much fun. So we came to shouting. And I told her, I said, I don't know how you can pick and choose these different things. And she looked at me and she said, I don't know why this makes you so upset. And I realized that eventually I was going to have to tell her why it made me so goddamn upset.
Right.
See, what had happened was...
Well.
The first time I remember having feelings for a girl was when I was like 6.
Well...
Shit. But I wasn't brave enough at the time. So after our most recent lovely election, just damn lovely, she and I also had a number of talks, which were very uncomfortable for both of us. And finally, she came for a visit, and I said, look, I need to be honest with you. Part of the reason that I am so upset about this is because this is how I identify. And for the most part, that went fine, except for when she said, so you chose to be with Alan. And that's my husband. He may not want to, I don't know if he wants to be known.
He doesn't want to be outed. I think just, keeping it first name is fine.
So she said, doesn't that make you believe even more that it's a choice? Which was really difficult.
Yeah. How did you respond to that?
I explained to her that it's not a choice when I find myself attracted to women. Just because I'm married to a man doesn't mean that I'm married. I'm not dead. Like, you don't just, you don't stop noticing people or
I'm married, not dead.
Yeah. So we talked about all of that. Then she told me that if a woman ever hit on her, she would, and I quote, punch her in the face.
Wow.
So it was one of those situations where I realized I really was having a conversation with someone who I think part of it comes from her own level of discomfort with herself.
Yeah. To have such a violent reaction to something.
Right.
That's a step in a different direction.
I did ask her, I did say, what if I met my husband at a very young age, at 17. We've been together since then. And I said, what if it had been different? I've often thought about that. And she said, I don't know. I said, will we have a relationship? She said, maybe not.
Wow.
It was an incredibly frank conversation.
Yeah.
But we continue to have a relationship. She's not pushed me on it anymore. Every now and again when we talk, she'll say, I just want you to know that I am not a stereotype. She said, I do think about the things that we talk about. I do think about the things that you bring to my attention. But it's not been anything that she's directly addressed since then. So
Avoidance.
Yeah.
Is that the norm now?
Yeah, I was kind of expecting it to be avoidance with some discomfort.
Yeah.
I'm a very physically affectionate person. But it's not been. I mean, she's not acted like anything is really different. She just doesn't. We don't talk. She just doesn't talk about it.
I went through that a somewhat similar experience. So, as I said earlier, my family is from the Pentecostal tradition, evangelical Christians, and hellfire and brimstone, right? Is the way I came up in church, and while it gave me a lot of it informed a large part of my life. There was a time.
This is the very serious part. I'm so sorry.
No, it's more than it takes wine to talk about.
I just talked about my mother. I need more wine.
It takes wine to talk about. And I went through a period where, because of that religious tradition, that we had a bit of a falling out while I was still an undergrad. I didn't speak to my mother for about 6 months, and it was after we'd had a conversation where. I'm, at this point, I am openly gay to my family, and for the most part, everybody has my whole family has been very accepting, except at this point in time, this was just maybe within the year of having come out to my parents, that we had this conversation about same-sex marriage in Tennessee, because this must have been this must have been somewhere around the time we were debating same-sex marriage in the state. There was something must have been happening. It was in the headlines, and I remember remarking to my mother and saying, well, something about she makes the comment that it's the country is just so liberal anymore, right? It's just anything goes. Values are just out the door.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I can't even get married. And she said, what do you mean you can't get married? I said, well, I can't get married to somebody that I love. Well, you can marry somebody. You can marry a woman. And but that's not the thing that but I'm gay. And there was a bit of a conversation to be had about that. And I think that's whenever everything sort of finally set in and really crystallized in terms of defining this chapter in our lives. And we didn't speak for a little while. We had I won't say a falling out, because I did return home and I did see my dad, and they're still married, and so I did see her, but we just the conversations, the connection that we had was completely different. It was altered after that. Mm-hmm. And my brother actually went and talked to my mother and sort of, I don't want to say smooth things over, but really started to open up a channel where we could communicate more clearly back and forth between the two of us. But that took about 6 months. And it was based primarily in her religious objections to homosexuality, gayness, right? What she'd been taught.
Do you have a honey?
I'm in love with? But I do have a honey.
You do have a honey.
I do have a honey. I have a honey. I always have.
You always have a honey. Well, tell us what your honey is. Honey.
Honey, put your goddamn cart in the fucking cart return.
Honey, why are you so lazy?
Why are you so lazy? Why? I got a tiny ass car, and so that's the only reason I'm able to pull in when there's a fucking cart in the parking spot already. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even care. My car is only it's as big as this table, right? I'll just go ahead and pull in. But what about all the people here with their giant ass SUVs?
Right.
I cannot stand that. It's like, could you say more that you hate humankind? Could you say it in a clearer way than just leaving your cart in the middle of the fucking parking lot?
Well, just the parking lot of a grocery store or a department store is just the worst. Like today I was trying to go to Kroger. Honey, do not go to Kroger on a Friday and in the middle of the afternoon. Honey,
or Wednesday.
A Friday afternoon too is the same thing. It's a mess.
Yes.
It's a mess. I thought I was going to be beating everybody because they weren't off work yet. Well, apparently ain't nobody went to work today.
No.
Because it was a mess.
No, it's because everybody here gets off work at 3:30 for no
Well,
good
this
reason.
was 2 because I get off at 1.
Let me just sneak that in.
Well, on Fridays because I work hard earlier in the week so that I can get up. But everybody was at the Kroger.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that there's never a cart issue at Kroger. It's always like a Walmart where it's like, bitch, really?
But there is always a cart issue at Kroger.
Yeah.
And
There's
it may
a
not
cart
necessarily be
issue at
the
Kroger.
issue that everybody here is thinking about. Me, I always find issue with the fact that there are never the small carts.
The small carts, thank you.
I mean,
where are they?
They are always gone.
No, it's not even.
Somebody runs away with them.
Somebody runs away with the small carts. Somebody runs away with the goddamn baskets. Where's the basket?
Where are the baskets?
There should be baskets when you walk in the door.
There's never a basket.
There is never a basket there. You have to go way over to the customer service area
Scouting.
where the baskets are, and there's just a stack of 75 of them, and they go up to the ceiling. And you're
why
just
didn't you put them by the doors,
you couldn't
baby?
move
Put them by
over?
the doors.
You gotta put on your "Can I please speak to the manager" face.
Yes.
Just to go get a fucking basket.
You're a white woman. Let me speak to the manager face.
Let me put some more gel in my hair and puff it up and be like, "Bitch, give me a basket."
I need a basket.
So,
why are these baskets?
Y'all,
not by
I
the
will
door?
confess that I had a very terrible experience at our local Kroger not long ago. And so I don't know if you know this. Every receipt you get from Kroger, you get a survey, a code for a survey.
They give you a notebook.
Well,
that receipt that is so much paper to recycle honey.
Well, but I always do it because you get 50 fuel points. And y'all, those of us that live here, there is no other grocery store besides Kroger. I mean, we've got some good little
Some
local
locals,
things.
but you don't have everything.
But
there.
they don't always have everything.
They don't
And
have
so you
organic.
inevitably... Now, I refuse to go to
Some
Walmart,
bougie.
though. I will not shop at Walmart. I have boycotted them since
The beginning of time.
God was a boy. And
That's a boy.
I can't even imagine going there. So I'll go to Kroger. And that's just where I'll go.
Yeah.
If the local little store down next to my house doesn't have anything. So they give you the receipt. They give you a code. Always take the code. You get 50 fuel points. If you you buy gas. I mean, you got to buy gas.
You got to buy gas.
And
Can't get any fucking
100
miles
fuel points gets you 10 cents off. So that can accumulate fairly quickly if you go there very often. So of course I always take the surveys. I'm one of like 3 people that do, I'm sure. But this particular time I had a terrible experience.
Yeah.
It was something, there were things that weren't in stock. I think it was a Wednesday, so it was like Senior Citizens Day, so they get a discount.
Motherfucker.
And-
Goodwill has their Senior Citizen Day on Wednesday, too. It's like,
So,
come on, guys.
I mean,
Diversify.
It looks like the apocalypse, right? Like the shelves are completely empty. There is
It's like a
no
snow day.
fresh
It's like a damn
produce.
snow day where there's nothing.
Yes, there's nothing there. And so I don't know, I must have been particularly peeved that day about something anyway, because I then went home and took the survey and was just like, no, this was bad. I didn't get this. And it asked you a question, was there something there that you didn't buy that you would have bought otherwise had it been available? And I was like, yes. And I typed in 15 different things. And I was not in a good mood that day. Well, y'all, the manager calls me.
No.
Yes. And it was my mistake about something that I had complained about, because I picked up something that rang up something differently than what I thought it was. And I thought it was more expensive and it had been on sale. So it's completely my fault. I was mortified.
Oh.
And now whenever I fill out the surveys, I tell them, don't contact me.
Because I don't need that
Because
embarrassment.
I don't need that in my
I don't
life.
need that shit.
I know you're wrong.
Me.
I'm right. I don't care.
So maybe we can get them to like sponsor us or something. Fucking Aldi, guys. Okay.
I
gotta
can't-
go with the right
It is
time.
random as fuck.
It is
there.
random as fuck.
I know I need consistency
And-
with what I get.
and I gotta
can't go to
say,
Aldi's.
I crave the organization of a grocery store where you can like walk down the aisle and everything's perfect in
Yeah.
the place it's supposed to be in.
Yes.
Because my small human is almost 2 and my life is a disaster. But there is something about it's so fucking cheap.
Isn't
And they really do have some great shit sometimes.
They do.
Just don't buy their produce
sometimes.
because they
Now,
freeze it.
I will
I don't
say-
have time for some time.
You don't
You
time
have
for
to bring your own
sometimes.
bags, though,
You do have to bring your own bags.
unless you want to pay for them.
Yeah, and
Which is fine. And I didn't realize that was like a major thing until
Yeah.
the last time I was in Chicago. And they have the plastic bag tax.
But you can get a box.
You can.
And
But
I
I mean,
will-
I always carry bags, though.
Yeah,
I mean, I have
will
plenty of bags.
Steal a box.
And I started, the last time I was in Chicago, I started recycling my CVS bag like it was a plastic bag, and I paid the 10, 15 cents, whatever it was, for it, and then just kept it in my hotel room and then just used it at other places because I didn't, it's a thing, other places that you don't, you should bring your own bag or you pay a tax. You shouldn't rely on a store to just provide it for you.
So again, thank you for joining us, Linda's, on a couple of Lindas. We'll see you next time.